March 2nd, 1944. Alexandra Fjord, Ellesmere Island, high above the Arctic Circle. Wind screams across the frozen inlet like a living creature, tearing at canvas tents and slamming fistfuls of ice crystals into faces already burned raw by cold. The night sky is a black, starless void, the kind that swallows sound, light, and hope. And somewhere inside this blinding storm, Corporal William Bill Hartley of the Canadian Arctic Rangers forces his frozen lashes apart and peers into the abyss. A faint orange glow, a seal oil lamp, flickers inside a snow cave carved earlier that afternoon. It's barely enough light to see his own hands. The temperature has dropped below -50 degrees Celsius, and the wind chill drives it even deeper. This is the kind of cold where exposed skin freezes gray in seconds, where rifles seize from crystallized oil, where breath turns to needles in your throat. Hartley taps the frost from his Lee Enfield No. 4 rifle and shifts his wool-lined mitts. 6 minutes, he mutters. Almost time. They rotate sentries every 6 minutes. Any longer, and frostbite begins eating fingers and toes. It's the only way to stay alive in storms like this. Storms the Germans at the secret station codenamed Haudegen believed would keep any Allied force far, far away. The Germans don't know Canadians live in this kind of weather. A shape emerges from the whiteout. Sergeant John Marston, leader of the 6-man Canadian team selected for this mission. His beard is rimed with frost so thick it looks like hoarfrost on driftwood. His voice comes as a hoarse whisper. Time to rotate. Inside. We've got new intel. Hartley squeezes into the narrow opening of the snow cave. Immediately, the world changes. The wind becomes a distant roar. The air is warmer, relatively speaking, and lit by 3 flickering seal oil lamps whose flame dances against walls carved from packed snow. The inside smells of wet wool, kerosene, and the faint, oily tang of seal blubber. It is heaven compared to the death outside. Inside sit the others. Lance Corporal Daniel Oakley, radio operator. Private Michel Beaulieu, Métis scout from Manitoba. Inuit guide Nukituk from Pond Inlet. The only man comfortable in this cold. Private Henry Collins, sharpshooter. All 6 look exhausted but alert. Marston kneels, brushing frost from a waxed map and leaning over it with a gloved finger. Storm's breaking by dawn, Marston says quietly, which means we move in 6 hours. Oakley picked up a German transmission, routine weather report. They don't know we're here. Hartley exchanges a look with Beaulieu. 6 hours to rest. 6 hours until they try the impossible. Nukituk, sitting cross-legged near the lamp, tightens a sealskin thong around his mukluks. He speaks without looking up. Blizzard hides you. Storm is good. His English is clipped but certain. Marston nods. Exactly. Haudegen is blind tonight. They'll assume no one moves in this weather. That's our chance. Oakley clears his throat. Sir, if visibility stays this low, how do we find the station? Nukituk finally lifts his eyes. Deep black, reflecting flame. I know the land, he says simply. Land tells me. Outside, the storm howls like a monstrous choir. Hours creep by. Men sleep in shifts, curled against each other for warmth, boots still on, rifles across their chests. Hartley dreams of warmth, a stove, a kitchen, the smell of his mother's bread, until Marsden shakes him awake. It's time. The sky has softened to a deep blue twilight. Not sunrise, not night, just the strange half-light of the Arctic. The wind has calmed to a steady, punishing blast. Snow still bites at them, but the whiteout has eased just enough to see 30 feet ahead. Equipment check. Lee Enfields wrapped in canvas to prevent ice crystals. Mark II grenades tucked inside inner pockets to keep fuses warm. Fairbairn Sykes knives strapped to thighs. Snowshoes, sealskin boots, wolfskin hoods, rope and ice axes, explosive charges for final demolition. Nukituk leads, stepping with silent precision over Sastrugi ridges. His movements are fluid, effortless, as if the Arctic itself is guiding him. The Canadians follow, each man sinking knee-deep into snow with every step. Breath comes in ragged bursts, eyebrows freeze shut. Even thoughts feel slow and brittle. Beaulieu mutters, "If the cold doesn't kill us, the march will." Hartley forces a grin. Cold's just trying to thin the ranks. The humor dies instantly as a gust sweeps over them, nearly knocking Collins off his feet. He catches himself with his rifle, panting. Another hour, then another. Finally, Nukituk raises a hand, a silent halt. The men drop to one knee. Marston crawls forward through the snow until he's beside the Inuit guide. "What do you see?" Nukituk points toward a dark shape barely visible through drifting ice fog. A structure, a shadow against the endless white. "Metal," Nukituk whispers. "Not rock, not snow." Marston wipes the frost from his lashes. And there it is, the faint outline of a German weather mast, its antenna just visible above the ridgeline. They've found it. The German station Haudegen, the Arctic outpost that fed crucial meteorological data to U-boats and Luftwaffe planners, lies somewhere below, nestled in a sheltered cove carved out by glaciers. Hartley feels adrenaline cut through the cold like a hot wire. Months of training, weeks of travel, and now they stand on the ridge overlooking one of Hitler's most important Arctic assets. Marston crouches low, voice barely above the whisper of snow. "Remember the plan. No gunfights, no noise. We take their radios, maps, code books, and break every piece of equipment that reports weather. Quiet and fast." Beaulieu smirks. "Easy for you to say." Collins elbows him. "Shut it. We're close." Nukituk leans forward, pressing a gloved hand to the snow. "Wind shift soon," he murmurs. "Storm comes back." Hartley's heart thumps. They have maybe 2 hours before another blizzard hits, maybe less. Marston straightens. "Rangers, we move." The men descend the ridge, creeping single file into the teeth of the Arctic night. Snowflakes streak horizontally across their vision. Each step is a prayer. Each breath burns like fire. Each second brings them closer to the German outpost, and whatever waits inside. The world narrows to cold, footsteps, and mission. Silence blankets the Arctic. Then, a shadow moves near the weather mast. A German watchman. Marston raises his fist. "Halt!" Hartley's pulse pounds. They are 50 yards away, exposed on open snow. The wind dies for half a second. The German turns. His lantern flickers. His eyes widen. Hartley inhales sharply. For a moment, the Arctic holds its breath. The German sentry stands frozen beneath the weather mast, his lantern trapped in a trembling hand. Snow whips around him in frantic spirals, the dim yellow light casting long, twitching shadows across the ice. His face is pale, half hidden beneath a fur-lined cap. He sees something, a shape in the storm, but the whiteout is too thick for certainty. Corporal Hartley feels his heartbeat thudding in his ears. 50 yards, no cover, no sound except the rasping wind. Everyone remains kneeling, barely visible lumps in the snow. One wrong move, one flinch, and the Germans inside the station will know they're here. Marston slowly lowers his fist. His other hand points to Nukituk. The Inuit guide nods once. Then he simply disappears. Nukituk drops flat, blends with the snow, and begins sliding forward using elbows and knees. He moves with an unnatural stillness, like a shadow drawn across ice. Even the wind seems to conceal him, a man born of this land, a ghost the blizzard itself cannot reveal. The German watchman turns again, his back now toward the Rangers. Marston whispers through clenched teeth, "Hold! Hold!" Hartley feels frost form inside his throat. The German lifts his lantern higher. A gust of wind slams into him, and the flame flickers wildly. He curses in German, shielding the lamp with gloved hands. Nukituk rises behind him, silent, sudden, spectral. A gloved hand covers the German's mouth. Another clamps around his arm. A muffled grunt. A short struggle. Then stillness. Marston signals, "Move, now." The Canadians surge forward, low and fast, slipping past the mast and toward a cluster of dark shapes nestled against a slope. The weather station buildings. The structures appear one by one through the swirling snow. A main cabin of reinforced timber, a generator shed, a small radio hut, a storage depot partially buried under drifted snow. Faint light leaks from frost-bitten windows. Smoke curls weakly from a stovepipe. Somewhere inside, German meteorological staff scribble readings, confident no human would ever reach them through a storm like this. Beaulieu exhales sharply. Looks almost peaceful. Collins answers, "Feels like a trap." Marston raises a finger to his lips. "Positions." Like wolves circling prey, the Rangers fan out. Hartley and Collins approach the radio hut. Objective 1. Beaulieu and Oakley move toward the main cabin. Marston stays central, watching all angles. Nukituk drags the unconscious sentry into a snowbank and covers him with drifted powder before rejoining the team, his breathing steady as if the cold ignores him. Inside the storm, visibility narrows to 10 feet. Shapes blur. Sound distorts. Every step crunches softly under snowshoes, muffled by layers of powder. Hartley reaches the radio hut. He presses an ear to the door. Inside, he hears the soft hum of equipment, a typewriter clacking, a man coughing. He turns to Collins. "Ready?" Collins nods, knife already in hand. Shooting is the last resort. A gunshot here would echo over ice for miles. Hartley grips the door handle, feels the ice crack beneath his mitts, and counts silently. 3, 2, 1. He pushes in. The hut is cramped, lit by a single bulb powered by a rattling generator. Against the far wall sits a German radio operator wearing thick woolen socks and a sweater under his uniform. His headphones cover his ears. He taps a key, utterly oblivious. Collins crosses the room in 3 silent strides. In one fluid movement, he wraps an arm around the German's neck, pulling him back. The man gasps, a startled cry forming. Hartley clamps a hand over his mouth. "Ruhe," Hartley mutters. "Be quiet." The German struggles once, twice, then slumps, unconscious. Collins lowers him gently. "One down." Hartley scans the room. Enigma code sheets, weather logs, transmission schedules, barometric readings, maps marked with U-boat routes. Everything they need. "Grab it," Hartley says. "Burn the rest." Collins starts stuffing documents into a canvas bag. Hartley pulls out a tin of fuel and splashes it over other papers. The cold air fills with the sharp sting of kerosene. One match, shielded from the draft, drops onto the pile. A flame blossoms. The fire crackles softly, eating through sheets that once guided U-boats toward Allied convoys. Outside, the sound of crunching snow. Marston appears at the doorway, face pale under the frost. "Status?" "We've got their logs, sir, and their radio man's out." Marston nods. "Good. Main cabin next. Germans are awake." Hartley stiffens. "How many?" 4, maybe 5. Beaulieu heard movement. A sudden metallic slam splits the air. The door of the main cabin flies open. A German scientist stumbles out, clutching a lantern and shouting back inside. Another figure appears, this one armed with a KAR-98K rifle. Collins whispers, "They're on to us." Marston gestures sharply. "Positions! Ambush!" Snow whips across the scene as the Germans step into the open, blinking through the wind. Beaulieu melts behind a stack of supply crates. Nukituk kneels behind a snow ridge, silent, ready. Hartley and Collins slip to the far flank. Marston crouches in the center, hand raised. Wait. The armed German scans the ridge. Hartley holds his breath. The second German takes another step. Then the storm shifts, just slightly, and the lantern light reflects off something in the snow. The German freezes. His finger tightens on the trigger. Marston's hand cuts the air. A signal. Go! The ambush detonates out of the whiteout. Hartley lunges from the right. Beaulieu barrels from the left. Nukatuk moves like a phantom, crossing 10 feet in a heartbeat. Collins' knife gleams. The Germans shout, startled, panicked, overwhelmed. A brief scuffle. A grunt. A lantern drops and smashes, plunging the yard into near darkness. Then, silence. The Canadians drag the stunned Germans inside the cabin, gagging them, binding their hands with rope. No alarms, no gunshots. Marston exhales. Good work. But the mission isn't over, far from it. Because deep in the main cabin, glowing green under the flicker of oil lamps, sits the largest piece of equipment, the primary transmitter, capable of sending Arctic weather data straight to Berlin. The heart of Houdigan. Oakley steps toward it. Sir, if we take this out, their entire northern network collapses. Marston stares at the machine. Then we take it. A low rumble rolls across the ice. The storm is returning. Fury, blinding, deadly. They have minutes, maybe less, before the blizzard buries everything. Marston turns sharply. Rangers, set charges! The final phase begins. The temperature plunges so fast the air seems to crack. A deep, bone-shaking rumble sweeps across the ice shelf, rolling like distant artillery. The returning blizzard, heavier, angrier, and far more lethal than the last, creeps along the horizon like a living wall. Even the Germans, bound and gagged inside the cabin, stare wide-eyed at the vibrating window panes. Damn it, Beaulieu mutters, wiping frost from his brows. She's coming in fast. Nukatuk steps to the door, eyes narrowed. The wind flays his hood, yet he stands like a man reading the breath of the earth itself. He nods once. Minutes, no more. Marston snaps into motion. Collins, Hartley, main transmitter, charges on the frame and the cable junction. Oakley, find anything we can use as kindling. Beaulieu, secure the Germans. Nukatuk! The Inuit guide looks over his shoulder. Yes. Marston jerks his chin toward the storm. Tell me how long until we lose visibility. Nukatuk glances into the blizzard, then answers simply, when wind screams too loud to hear your own breath, you have no time left. The hut trembles as the first wave of storm wind slams into the wall. Hartley kneels beside the transmitter, a monstrous steel box wired to the generator outside. Thick bundles of cable snake across the floor, each coated with frost. Collins hands him the explosives, compact charges with short delay fuses. Enough to shatter the machine, but not the entire cabin. Hartley works quickly, breath puffing in short bursts. Collins, pass me the last clamp. Collins holds the beam steady as Hartley fastens the charge beneath it. Frozen metal bites through his gloves. You good? Collins asks. No, Hartley mutters, but the machine will be. They pull the firing cord taut, anchoring it against a support beam. Oakley, shivering uncontrollably, rushes in with an armful of papers, maps, and logs stolen from the radio hut. Found weather logs going back 4 months, he pants. They were transmitting wind patterns for U-boat wolf packs. Marston takes the documents, flips through them, and shoves them into a waterproof satchel. These go back with us. Everything else burns. Beaulieu ties the last knot around the German scientist's wrists, checking their gags. They stare at him with a mixture of fear and confusion. He sighs and pats one on the shoulder. Relax, ami, we're not here to kill you, but your toys are going boom. The German muffles something, maybe a warning, maybe a plea. It doesn't matter now. The cabin shakes again. Nukatuk steps inside. Storm, come closer. Wind will eat your footprints. Good for leaving, bad for staying. Marston nods sharply. Rangers, finish up. We leave in 5. Hartley and Collins complete the last charge and join the others as Marston gives the order. Light it! Hartley pulls the ignition match. Fire catches the fuse with a hiss like a snake in snow. Go! Move! The men spill out of the cabin into a blast of icy knives. The blizzard has arrived, a world-ending white curtain swallowing everything beyond arm's reach. Snow claws at faces, coats, weapons, eyes. It is impossible to tell sky from ground. Marston points through the storm. "Snow caves! Back to shelter, now!" The Rangers push forward, leaning into the wind like men walking through invisible water. Their breath freezes instantly. Snowshoe straps stiffen. Ice forms between glove seams. Every step demands courage, strength, and fury. Nukituk leads the way, his figure barely visible through the screaming white. "Stay close! Follow my feet!" Behind them, the German station flickers faintly through the storm, a warped silhouette in the chaos. Hartley looks back once. The fuse burns into the darkness, a tiny orange ember swallowed by snow. Then, a hollow whoomp. A tremor ripples through the ground. A pulse of orange light blooms inside the blizzard. The transmitter, heart of Hautigen, shatters. A second explosion cracks like thunder. The generator hut blows apart, sending a cloud of steaming metal fragments into the frozen air. Oakley shouts over the wind, "Direct hit!" Collins laughs through chattering teeth. "Goodbye, Berlin!" Marston doesn't turn back. "Keep moving!" But the storm has grown monstrous. Wind slams into them with enough force to stagger a man. Snow cascades in horizontal sheets. Visibility drops to 3 feet. Even Nukituk slows, his shoulders hunched against the worsening gale. Bulyu yells, "We're losing the trail!" Nukituk shakes his head. "No trail, only wind. Must feel ground." He's palmed to the snow, then stands and veers hard left. Marston trusts him without hesitation. "Follow him!" The world becomes a nightmare of motion. Wind screaming, snow slicing, ice cracking. Men grip each other's shoulders to stay upright. Their eyelashes freeze shut. Their breaths turn to crystals that cut their lips. Hartley feels his fingers going numb inside his mitts. He tightens his grip on Collins' shoulder. "Don't lose the line!" Then a blast of wind knocks him sideways. He slips, falls, slides down a shallow drift. "Bill!" Collins shouts, voice swallowed instantly. Hartley scrabbles with frozen fingers trying to grip something, anything. Snow fills his hood, his collar, his mouth. The world spins in white circles. Then, a hand grabs his wrist. Nukituk. He hauls Hartley up with the strength of a man who has fought this land his whole life. "Not safe to fall," the guide says calmly. "Storm takes men." Hartley coughs out snow. "I noticed." They push forward again, crawling, trudging, leaning into the screaming dark. Minutes stretch like hours. The white hell seems endless. Then suddenly, Nukituk stops. "Here!" Marston nearly collides with him. "Where?" Nukituk kneels and brushes away a thick drift. Beneath it, the curved entrance of their snow cave appears, half buried, invisible in the chaos. "You passed it," the guide says. "Storm hides everything." The men collapse inside the small chamber, dragging themselves in like dying animals, breathless, freezing, exhausted, alive. Wind roars outside like the planet itself is trying to peel away the surface. Collins laughs weakly. "Holy hell, we did it!" Hartley slumps against the curved wall of packed snow, chest heaving. "Transmitter's gone! They're blind!" Marston lowers his hood, face pale but determined. "Not yet. We need proof. And we need to get home alive." Oakley wipes frost from his radio. "Sir, storm's blocking anything longer than a kilometer. We're on our own." Outside, the blizzard rages. A monster awakened, beating at the snow cave with fists of wind. Inside, 6 rangers sit in flickering seal oil light, listening to the storm trying to eat the world. The mission is only half over. The survival begins now. The storm claws at the snow cave with a fury that feels personal, as if the Arctic itself has discovered intruders on its land and intends to erase them. The walls groan softly under the pressure. Snow sifts through tiny cracks in the ceiling. The lamps flicker, shadows bending like dark spirits across the icy dome. Inside, the men huddle in a tight circle. No one speaks at first. The wind outside is too loud, too violent, too unnerving. It sounds like the howl of a predator pacing the entrance, daring them to step into its jaws. Hartley rubs his hands vigorously inside his mitts. His fingertips burn, the first sting of frostbite fighting its way back to life. He grits his teeth as the sensation intensifies. Collins nudges him. "Still got your fingers?" "Barely." "Good, because you'll need 'em when we get home." Marston lifts his head, listening to the storm's pulse. "We're pinned until this calms. No movement. Conserve heat. Conserve breath." Beaulieu lies on his back, eyes closed, chest rising and falling in slow, controlled breaths. "Feels like the blizzard's right on top of us." Nukituk, sitting cross-legged nearest to the entrance, eyes half closed, adds softly, "She is angry, but she will sleep soon." "Soon?" Oakley groans. "Define soon." Nukituk gestures to the ice with a gloved hand. "When wind spins snow, when snow rises in circles, that means Spirit of Storm loses her strength. Then we go." The men exchange glances. They trust him. They have no other choice. Minutes stretch into an hour. An hour becomes 2. Inside the cramped cave, breathing becomes difficult. Not because of fear, though there is plenty, but because the heat of 6 bodies in a confined space melts a thin layer of the interior walls. That moisture begins to freeze again, sealing the cave tighter, reducing oxygen flow. Hartley feels a dull ache crawling up his temples. Collins notices. "Headache?" "Yeah." "Good. Means you're still alive." Marston shifts, taking stock of each man through the dim lamp glow. "Check frostbite. Feet first." They go down the line, boots off for seconds at a time, just long enough to inspect white patches or waxy skin. Beaulieu has a frostbitten heel. Oakley's left pinky is pale and stiff. Nukituk examines Oakley's hand, presses it between both of his own, and begins rubbing in slow, firm circles. "You breathe warm air," he instructs. "Blow on your hand." Oakley obeys. In minutes, color returns. Hartley watches in awe. "Where'd you learn that?" Nukituk's eyes remain on the injured hand. "My father. We traveled ice when storms took men for sport. He taught me how to keep fingers." Beaulieu chuckles weakly. "Hell of a family lesson." The guide only nods. At some point, no one is sure exactly when, the wind shifts. Less screaming, more pulsing, as if the heart of the storm is slowing. Hartley notices frost patterns forming on the cave walls, swirling inward like a spiral, just as Nukituk predicted. Nukituk lifts his head. "She sleeps soon." Marston leans forward. "How long?" "Maybe 1 hour." Collins groans. "Feels like we've been here a week." Oakley taps the radio set resting on his lap. Its casing is cold enough to burn bare skin. "If Storm dies, I might get a signal through. Maybe even call in pickup." Marston raises an eyebrow. "From here?" Oakley shrugs. "It's the Canadian Arctic. Radio waves do strange things. Could bounce off anything. The atmosphere, water vapor, ice particles." Beaulieu snorts. Translation, maybe. Oakley nods. Maybe. But before he can say more, a low, thumping vibration rolls through the cave floor. Not the wind. Not the ice shifting. Something else. Hartley sits up sharply. "What was that?" Another vibration, heavier, closer. A rhythmic thud muffled through layers of snow. Collins grips his rifle. "Tell me that's not..." Nukituk answers without hesitation. "Footsteps." The cave goes silent. Marston whispers, "German patrol?" Beaulieu shakes his head. "No way! They'd be dead in this storm." Hartley's pulse hammers. "Then who..." Nukituk raises a hand for silence, tilting his head like a hunter listening for the heartbeat of prey beneath snow. He breathes out slowly. Not footsteps. Ice. Breaking. Oakley pales. Breaking where? Nukituk points upward. The ceiling. A crack forms, thin, delicate, branching across the snow like a white spider web. A clump of frost drops onto Collins's shoulder. Hartley curses. If this collapses, we're finished. Marston snaps. We reinforce it! Now! Move! The men scramble, pressing their hands against the ceiling, redistributing weight. The ice groans overhead, a deep, belly-rattling sound. Snow trickles down like dust. The storm outside screams louder, pushing against the structure. Nukituk mutters something in Inuktitut under his breath, a prayer, a plea, or a warning. Then, crack! A jagged fissure slices across the ceiling. Snow pours down like a broken dam. Hartley shouts, "It's coming in!" Marston braces a shoulder against the collapse. "Hold it! Hold it!" But the storm chooses that moment to unleash another blast. The entire cave shudders. The ceiling buckles. Nukituk yells, "Out! Dig! Now!" The men explode into action, clawing at the snow, widening the entrance, trying to push their way out before the cave becomes a tomb. Outside is nothing but white death. Roaring wind, flying crystals, and darkness. But staying means suffocation. Hartley dives through the opening first, boots kicking through a wall of drifting snow. Collins follows, then Beaulieu, Oakley, Nukituk, and finally Marston, who barely escapes before the cave collapses behind them in a thunderous slump. They stand gasping in the blizzard, half buried, half blind. Marston screams over the wind, "We move! Find high ground! Form a line! Hand to shoulder!" The men link into a human chain, gripping coats, straps, anything they can hold. Nukituk takes lead, leaning into the storm like a man leaning into a fist. Hartley coughs snow from his lungs and squints into the white hell. "How far?" he yells. Nukituk shouts back, "If storm sleeps, we see coastline." "Then what?" Collins hollers. Nukituk turns, face coated in ice. "Then we find way home." The storm roars on, but now they are no longer hiding. Now they are running. The blizzard swallows them whole. 6 silhouettes, roped together by nothing but fingertips and desperation, push through a world so violently white it seems to erase the very idea of direction. Sound vanishes in the storm's roar. Snow lashes sideways like shards of broken glass. The wind howls against their bodies with such ferocity that each step feels like a physical battle against an invisible, merciless enemy. Nukituk leads, head lowered, feet moving with uncanny precision. It's as if he senses the land through instinct alone. The slope of snowdrifts, the subtle pull of the wind, the distant hum of ice shifting under pressure. Behind him, Marston clings to the guide's pack strap. Behind Marston comes Hartley, then Collins, then Beaulieu, and lastly Oakley dragging the radio set strapped across his chest. Every few minutes one of them stumbles. Every time the others hold him up. The storm does not stop. It grows stronger. "Nukituk!" Marston shouts, his voice ripped away by the wind. "How far to high ground?" Nukituk doesn't turn. He simply lifts a hand and gestures forward. "Soon," he calls back, though no one can hear him clearly. Hartley feels his legs trembling. His gloves are soaked with snowmelt. Ice has formed under his arms and around his chin. He knows, with the certainty of a man who has fought the Arctic firsthand, they cannot survive long out here. But he also knows that stopping is death. So he moves. One step, then another, then another. Beaulieu coughs violently behind him. "My lungs feel like they're freezing." Collins grips his shoulder. "They are. Keep breathing, slow, through your scarf." Oakley trips on a buried ridge and nearly collapses. Hartley twists, grabs him by the collar and hauls him upright. "Not yet," Hartley growls. "You die later, after I do." Oakley forces a weak laugh, but it comes out more like a wheeze. Suddenly Nukituk raises both hands. "Stop." The men halt instantly. The guide unclips a small flare knife from his belt and drives it into the snow. The blade sinks deeper than expected. Too deep. He signals urgently, "Danger! Thin ice!" Hartley's eyes widen. "We're on sea ice?" Marston curses. "God damn it! Veer right! Now!" The storm shrieks even louder as if mocking them. The team angles sharply, crunching through thick drift until Nukituk signals again. Solid ground beneath them. A small rise. A ridge. The wind is brutal here, strong enough to knock Beaulieu sideways. Marston catches him by the pack straps. "On your feet!" "Trying, sir." They push upward until finally they crest the ridge, a low, hard plateau of wind-scraped snow. The blizzard still rages, but the land is firmer. Nukituk raises a hand. "All stop!" The men collapse to their knees, panting, coughing, shivering violently. Hartley feels every muscle in his body screaming in pain. Frost forms on his eyebrows, his hood, even the tips of his eyelashes. He wipes it away and looks to the guide. Nukituk stares into the storm, silent and still. Marston crawls beside him. "Tell me you see something." Nukituk points, a vague, wavering shadow far ahead, a darker shape in the endless white. "The fjord," he says. Hartley squints. At first he sees nothing, then a faint line, a horizontal break where the land drops toward the sea. Oakley gasps. "If that's the fjord, we can reach the coast." Beaulieu groans. "If the wind doesn't peel our skin off first." Marston forces himself to stand. "That's our way home. Move!" The descent is worse than the climb. Snowballs roar past, carried by hurricane-force winds. Sharp ridges slice their legs through layered trousers. Hartley feels the storm punching him sideways, twisting his balance. Twice, he nearly falls. Twice, Collins yanks him back. "Don't you dare fall off this thing," Collins snarls. "I'm not dragging your frozen body." "Love you too," Hartley mutters. Nukituk leads them through switchbacks invisible to the others. Tiny cracks in the ice that only he senses, ridges carved by prevailing wind that he has known since boyhood. Finally, at the bottom of the slope, the storm thins, just barely, revealing a stretch of coastline choked with ice floes and frozen boulders. And there, half buried under snowdrift, their emergency fuel cache. Oakley stumbles toward it, tears freezing on his lashes. "We made it!" Marston kneels beside the wooden crate, scrapes snow away with numb fingers, and opens the lid. Inside, 2 sealed jerry cans, a box of flares, a compact stove, and most importantly, a signal rocket. Marston lifts it reverently. "Oakley, radio!" Oakley drops to his knees, fumbling with the frozen knobs. Static crackles, white noise, nothing but wind. He adjusts the gain. Static, static. Then a faint mechanical buzz. Hartley leans close. "Is that—" Oakley shushes him, pressing headphones to his ears. After several seconds, he nods slowly. "Signal. Very weak. But something's bouncing around the ionosphere." Marston's voice grows firm. "Try." Oakley keys the transmitter. "Canso 1, Canso 1, this is Fox-Terre Arctic Team. Mission accomplished. Repeat, mission accomplished. Request extraction at Fjord Delta Grid 30. Severe storm conditions." Silence. Only the storm answers. Oakley tries again, raising his voice, cracking it with desperation. "Canso 1, do you copy? This is Fox-Terre requesting immediate evac." A long pause. Then, "Fox-Terre, copy. Storm, ETA 2 hours. Hold position." Hartley laughs, a half-crazed burst of relief. Collins slams a fist into the snow. God bless those flying lunatics. Marston allows himself one exhale of victory. Then he looks at Nukituk. The guide nods silently. "Yes, we hold." The Rangers dig into the coastline, carving a makeshift windbreak from ice slabs. They huddle close, burning the last drops of seal oil and rationing warmth like treasure. Above them, the blizzard rages on, but they endure. An hour passes, then another. Finally, through the swirling snow comes the distant drone of engines. A twin-engine PBY Catalina seaplane emerges from the whiteout like a mythic creature, wings coated in frost, searchlights sweeping the frozen coastline. Beaulieu shouts, "There, there!" Hartley fires 2 flares. Red streaks cut the sky. The Catalina banks, descends, and skids onto a stretch of semi-frozen water. The side hatch opens. A rope ladder drops. Marston looks at his men, exhausted, frostbitten, nearly broken, and nods. "Home, boys." They climb aboard one by one, collapsing into the warmth of the fuselage as the crew wraps them in blankets. Hartley leans against the cabin wall, eyes closing. "We got it done," he whispers. Marston replies quietly, "Hitler's Arctic eye is blind." Outside, the Catalina lifts from the frozen sea, climbing into the storm-ravaged sky. Behind them, buried in snow and darkness, the shattered remains of Hautigen smolder under the Arctic night, silenced forever. The Rangers survived, the mission succeeded, and the Arctic kept its secrets.